Okay, so we are going to move on to the final section of our lecture for this week, and we're going to hit briefly on self-care because, like I said, this is an area that I definitely want to make sure that we hit on each week, whether it's for crisis counseling purposes or just as a counselor or wanting to be a healthy individual. So the first thing that I want to suggest in terms of self-care are some of the interventions that I talked about earlier, be it the trauma timeline or the trauma egg. And the reason I suggest these is because oftentimes as a therapist, it is much more powerful to suggest an intervention to your clients that you might have participated in earlier. This gives you a sense of self-knowledge, how you might present it to your client, as well as that empathetic view that you're looking for. Having that understanding that you know how hard it is to complete a trauma egg or to complete trauma charting. And so if you feel comfortable talking about to yourself and writing about some of those trauma histories, timelines, trauma eggs, that might be something that is very beneficial to you. And now out of that, I really, really want to encourage you that if at any point things are overwhelming to you or something comes out of one of those exercises or anything that we're talking about, please do not hesitate to seek counseling. If that's something that you're not sure about, please go ahead and email me and we can dialogue about that. But it's interesting, as I've been doing some study of my own this week, one of the things that I ran across in the Code of Ethics for all marriage and family therapists is a little statement in there. And what it says is that a person who is not dealing with their own personal issues might not be somebody that's fit to help other people deal with their own issues. And what that tells me is that my own self-care, my own dealing through my past and my emotions and my family and current situations and struggles and anxieties that I'm going through, that is just as important as the clients that we are serving. So if you are to participate in any of these exercises and something comes up, please let me know or go ahead and seek out counseling, as it's very, very beneficial. And I always like to tell this to my clients too. I, as a therapist, am not above counseling. I go to counseling sometimes every week or every other week at the very, very minimum. And this is something that I find to be very helpful, as people that are coming into my office are always triggering little things for me that I go, you know what, I need to work that out in myself. It's not a weak person who enters counseling, it's somebody who's strong and recognizes that they need outside support. And my friends, that is what the body of Christ is all about, is reaching out and leaning on others for support. Secondly, I really wanted to encourage y'all to prioritize your own spirituality. And I don't mean that you have to read the Bible for a certain amount of time or pray for this length of time or be in community or fellowship or those sorts of things. What I'm saying is find the things that are important to you. Find the things that connect you to the Lord and sit in that. For me, being in nature and drinking a cup of coffee is a very, very spiritual experience. Sitting outside and spending time with the Lord like I might spend time with a friend is very, very powerful for me. More powerful than if I were to be on my knees with my face to the ground praying or trying to pray for hours at a time. But to be in God's creation is a very spiritual experience for me. So whatever it is that fits your spirituality, the uniqueness of how God has created you to be, make sure to make that a priority in your life. And the final thing that I wanted to talk about in self-care, they talk about it in your text this week, and it's that term of grief fatigue. And so the one tool that I wanted to give y'all this week was what I call a container or a vault exercise. I do this with clients who I'm dealing with very intense or traumatic situations. In that at the end of the session, I have them picture in their mind putting everything that we've talked about into a vault or a container, or maybe they put it in a specific place in my office. And what that resembles is safekeeping, that they're able to keep that there until they come back to it the next week to address it. That way they don't have to take it into their regular lives, share it with family and friends, or have it be overwhelming or emotionally overcoming. And so I might encourage you to do the same thing. As you're working with clients who have been in traumatic situations, it's often easy to bring those situations outside of the office and let it overcome the rest of your life. But to use that same concept, to imagine yourself taking those thoughts and experiences, bringing them out of your head and placing them in a vault or some sort of a container for safekeeping so that that doesn't have to infiltrate the rest of your life, can be something that's very, very important. So that's your self-care tip for the week. Final tip for the week is going to be the resources that I wanted to give you. And the first one, I know some of you all have heard me talk about this before, is called Getting Past Your Past by Francine Shapiro. She is also the founder of EMDR. This is a great book that has a lot of techniques that you can do individually or you can bring it into a therapeutic session. It talks about kind of the beginnings of EMDR, how she came up with it, and then gives a lot of helpful tools for you to do this on your own. And the second self-care piece the resource piece that I have for y'all today is actually kind of funny. I picked out two of my favorite books. This is Redeeming Love by Francine Rivers and Bossy Pants by Tina Fey. And the reason I chose these is because I believe very, very strongly that y'all don't have to be reading heavy textbooks and very, very meaty subjects. Sometimes having books like this and finding something that you'll like that kind of puts a smile on your face or takes you away from the reality of the day just for a moment to give your mind a break. These are really, really great resources. I read these before I go to bed because it just kind of takes my mind off of things. So anything that's very mindless is going to be very helpful for you also as an element of self-care and as a resource. So I just grabbed two of my favorite books, but of course I'm sure y'all have different ones and feel free to use those also. So really quickly, as we look forward to next week, I'm really, really excited about our discussion for this week, talking about Christian versus secular approaches. We will have an assignment due, and that's going to be based off of your week 1 and 2 educational pamphlet that y'all created. You're going to kind of do a continuation of that, pretending that you are doing an interview. And then, of course, we're going to have our weekly readings and our group discussion board. So as always, if any of you have any questions or need more information, please go ahead and email me. Otherwise, I look forward to continuing to get to know you on the group discussion board, and good luck.